This is only a half calf. You're already on the sparkling ice?
Dude, I get up. Bro, I wake up at like 4:50, 5 o'clock every day.
Every day?
Pretty much every day.
What do you do when you get up?
First thing I do is I sprint to my coffee pot. I mean, it's actually not a coffee pot. I do a pour over.
Yeah. Yeah. Me
Because
too.
you know I'm a coffee snob.
You are a snob, yeah, and I love that about you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I noticed that you're very tan today.
You mean all my neutral colors?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to look natural.
You do, yeah. Yeah, and you have a pretty good tan, you know?
Yeah.
Stuff.
I have the golf tan.
Yeah, that's good. How was the golf game this summer?
It's been rough, but it's improving.
How come? I mean, you got a simulator, like you got...
Well, I just got a simulator.
Okay.
But I took a year off, and so now I'm trying to fight my way back.
You took a whole year off. What was the reason for taking a year off?
Because my brother-in-law intrigued me to start biking.
Oh, yeah.
So I got all into the biking. I did the race scene. I did the whole deal. I was like, I'm trying this biking thing out.
Yeah, and it's like more like mountain biking than like road.
Can I tell you why I quit?
Did you quit mountain biking?
Well, I kind of quit biking.
Oh, you quit biking altogether?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
'Cause you know how I like to get good at stuff?
Yes, you do.
I
Yeah.
really wanted to get good, and then I realized, you know what it takes to get good at biking?
A lot of time.
Well, yeah, but you have to be an absolute rail.
Oh.
You have to basically lose all of your muscle
Okay.
and become some type of effeminate-looking version of a man.
So basically, you're saying that all bike riders are effeminate looking.
I don't listen.
I'm just checking.
I have a lot of respect for the amount of work that goes into bike
Sure,
riding.
yeah.
But aesthetically, yes.
Yeah.
You are becoming the most effeminate version that you could possibly be. You have no muscle whatsoever.
Okay, so that's interesting. What do you think about like Lance Armstrong, who was like juicing the whole time? He was winning the.
What do I think about it?
Yeah,
Well, I think all of them are juicing at that level,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
without exception.
So have you heard of this new concept called the enhanced games?
No.
So there's two guys, I think they're both European, who are trying to create what will essentially be a competitive arena to the Olympics, except they're going to open it up.
So
for-
you can use drugs.
Exactly.
I've always said they should do this in every sport.
Yes.
Because to be honest with you, you know what's gonna be different? Nothing.
That's kind of their point. That's their point, yeah.
But
Yeah.
like they don't have to hide it and they
Right.
can just do it.
Right.
We want to be entertained.
That's the whole thing. They said the appeal of it
Yeah.
will be that people will be performing at such a high level that people will watch.
Yep.
They're going to start with only like a handful of sports, but because their other point is that one, the Olympic Committee is really driven by European aristocrats. There's it's $1 billion industry, and athletes see none of it. And so they want to put the money back in the athlete's pocket, and that the majority of the things that people pop for in Olympic trial
Yeah.
is things that are actually street legal, like things that you could go into GNC and get no problem.
Yeah.
And so they're like, that's crazy that it's in all of the supplements. And then we play this game, this doping game, where like people just know how to get around it,
Yeah.
but we act like they don't. And
It's so
and
weird.
athletes don't make
I mean,
money, so.
I mean, football, baseball. I mean, it's in every sport.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish they just legalized it. To be honest with you.
So that's the enhanced games.
Yeah.
So
Well, all right. Looking forward to the enhanced games.
there you go. Yeah.
But
It's
anyway-
coming to a city near you.
Full circle. I decided I didn't want to become any skinnier rail, and that having a little muscle as a man did matter to me.
Yeah.
So
And you're accustomed to it. I mean, you've been in the fitness game now for a while.
yeah,
20 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's that healthy.
You don't think so?
I don't think biking and excessive cardio like that's very healthy.
I did find out, I have a friend who's big into it, and that the levels that you would measure if you had like prostate cancer, I don't remember what those are, but those numbers can actually be higher if you're a cyclist.
You're sitting on a seat all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah, inflammation.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. So no more,
no more.
and now it's back to golf.
Golfing.
Okay.
I missed it.
And
I love it.
yeah,
Yeah, I love the working at something, trying to get better at something, being competitive at something.
a lot of finesse.
A lot of finesse. It does take athleticism. It takes power. You know, strength matters because how far you hit the ball matters. Finesse. Yeah, I just love the sport.
There was a YouTuber I saw who was doing a long drive contest
Yeah.
with Tiger Woods, and this guy crushed the ball.
Oh, yeah.
And then Tiger Woods got up and went on his knees
I saw that.
and outdrove the guy.
Saw that video.
And it was like,
That's pretty cool.
it kind of it gives you perspective of
Yeah.
what level of athlete it is at a professional level.
Yeah.
On his knees, like a little kid.
Oh, I saw it. I saw the video.
Yeah,
Tiger's amazing.
was
What
amazing.
hobby are you into?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because I've always been into hobbies, but where are you at?
Yeah, so I have two hobbies.
Okay.
Yeah, so the first hobby would be I do enjoy working out, and I've been doing a lot of procedures a lot lately, so a lot of anesthesia,
Yep.
and so I've been having a hard time finding a rhythm. But I did find a rhythm prior to my last surgery, where I'd get up at 5, I'd hop in the ice barrel for 5 minutes, then I'd go do a zone 2, like 45-minute row or something like that.
Cool.
And so that's how I was starting my day. And then my other hobby is coaching. So I do basketball coaching at a middle school level. So I've been doing that I originally started right out of high school. So I've been coaching for like 20 years.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. It gives me a chance to pour into people. It gives me a chance to kind of exercise a different part of my brain, I guess, in terms of how to develop a team, how to develop athletes.
Yep.
And at a crucial stage, I don't know about you, but I feel like I had a lot of coaches, but only a handful of coaches.
That actually, like, you remember made an impact?
Exactly, yeah. Or a positive impact, And so I like the opportunity. I may not be that guy, but I always strive to be that guy. So.
That is honestly really cool to think about. And I don't think about that enough when I go and coach. Because I really do only have a few coaches of all of the coaches I had over however many years.
Yeah, so who stood out to you?
My junior high basketball coach.
Yeah, okay. That's one of mine too, so.
Just a positive, believed in me, built me up. And consequently, we're on an amazing team. I mean, that team went on in their high school to go to state.
Right.
Probably the first team in North Scott level to go to state in a long time.
Sure.
I happened to move to Moline, so I didn't play with them in high school. But literally, it was our starting 5 as seniors. And we were together. That went to state. And that coach, Ken was his first name. I wish I remembered his last name. But, dude, just made a huge impact on me. Because I had some terrible coaches in high school.
Yes.
Dreamed to go play Division I football, and I had coaches that were just awful.
And when you say awful, like how did that manifest itself? Like,
I think they were so much about their own aspirations on being a varsity coach.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? That there wasn't a raw passion for building kids up, seeing the full potential in kids.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, like, I was now a coach, a fitness coach for how many years? I know what it means to look at an athlete and say, hey, how do I get them to their full potential?
Yeah.
And I look back and I'm like, how did no one see me and say, wait a minute, like, this kid could be developed into something? 'Cause how many athletes have we had in the gym? How many have I competed against on a national stage?
Yeah.
I know what's possible, and I know where I was. I was not developed well.
No, I don't think most athletes are developed well, especially at the high school level.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of potential left behind.
You know what sport I think does it the best? From what I can see, is baseball.
You think so?
Dude,
Interesting.
the amount of money and coaching and what I see from kids, it's impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of raised. I mean, from when we were kids, even it's
Oh.
a whole different level in terms of fielding, batting, pitching.
Dude, you know how you and I were raised in baseball?
I actually never played baseball.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I never played it.
But it was this.
Never even played.
Hey,
T-ball.
maybe once a month we're going to go to Michael's Sports World and be able to hit in the batting cage.
Right. Yeah. Now people. I mean, I have friends who have batting cages in their homes.
Really?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even like pitching mounts and stuff like that set up.
We got a kid that works out at the gym. He's like 11.
Yeah.
Comes in with a trainer working
Right.
on his fitness.
Yep.
And this kid happens to be on like one of the national teams, and it's just a whole different world now.
Well, youth sports is different, right? So
Yeah.
once they figured out that they could make money off of youth sports, because when we were kids, like to be on an AAU team was very elite.
Yeah.
Now to be on a travel team is just pay to play. And so one of the things that they've also found is that initially they thought youth sports was good for developing character, and now that they're realizing studies have shown it's only good at affirming character. Right?
Oh,
So
interesting.
So like the lane that you're in with your coaches and your parents and so forth,
Yeah.
that's just going to affirm a character. It's not going to inherently develop a good
Interesting.
character.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I think youth sports are super important, but I
Yeah.
think from an athlete perspective, there's a lot more that can be done. I was going to say, I think track athletes get developed really well.
It's
at
more like
school
specific, one domain. I can see that. You're kind of working on one thing.
Yeah, and I think historically track coaches have been kind of pretty open source. So I think they've been a little bit quicker to show, here's the training regiments and here's some of the hacks that we've done.
Yeah.
In terms of like resistance training, hill training, stuff like that.
Yep.
And so I think that community, because there's no money in the community, right?
Yeah.
So like even at a high school level, a track coach gets paid less than a football coach or a basketball coach.
Yeah.
And even a baseball coach. So I think because of that, that they've been more willing to share, because there's not a lot to be gained. Where like a football coach, it's a high-paying job. There's a lot of chance for movement, and so I think that causes them to be a little bit more guarded with that information.
Yeah.
So
that's good. Well, hey, what do you think about diving into our topic today?
Man, I'm pretty excited. Yeah.
Are you excited?
Mean, why not? Yeah. I feel like, why not get canceled on the second episode? Hey, welcome to Disformed. This is Josiah Lorenz, and I'm Gerad Hall.
Oh yeah, our intro.
Thanks for making a logo.
Yeah. Hey, we haven't shown that yet, but our logo's coming soon. We got one in the works.
I was like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, wow. And I was like, all right, that's it.
You know what? That's the reaction I got too when I showed my
it?
wife and my sister and whatnot.
Yeah.
They were like, whoa, because it felt a little egotistical, the one part, which I won't share yet.
That's exactly how I felt.
But they were like, no, not at all, because it's two of you. And I was like, oh, okay.
As long as both of us. And
Yeah.
Yeah. As long as both of our egos.
I love that the image part played on with the word, though.
It did, yeah. Very
You know
well.
what I mean?
Yeah, right. Yeah. I had to explain to her what disform meant for myself being a dispensational.
Yeah.
And for you being reformed in your theology.
Yeah.
And then your idea to smash it together for disformed.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that was awesome. So anyway, you're excited about the topic today, though, huh?
Yes, I'm excited to get canceled. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
You might as well. The only podcasts worth listening to are the ones that like unapologetically say what they're thinking.
I think so. Yeah.
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 So.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about?
Gerad and I were discussing, what are we going to talk about? And we said, you know what? Something that's in all of our lives that is in our face, whether we like it or not, whether we enjoy
way
talking.
more so than.
And especially for the next 6 months.
Yeah. For sure.
Is the election, and specifically the debate the other night.
Yes. Yeah, the first presidential debate. The first presidential debate that's ever happened prior to the DNC, the Democratic National Convention. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
There's some thoughts out there. I think that for evangelicals, this has been a lightning rod for the last 8 years with Trump. And
what do you mean by lightning rod?
Yeah, so I think that people love him or hate him. And I think
I said that yesterday.
There's not a lot of people who are kind of on the fence about Trump, or he's a very divisive figure, right?
Yep.
And
how do you feel about Trump?
Yeah, so historically, going into 2016, I didn't vote for him in the primary. It seemed like some type of bizarre world we were living in of reality TV. And because reality TV always kind of like borders on reality, but also fiction, And it was like, oh, reality is now stranger than fiction. And then when we knew that we were going to have a Supreme Court seat to fill, that became a no-brainer for me. That if it was a Republican candidate or a Democratic candidate in 2016, picking a life appointment position of a Supreme Court, I had to go platform. I couldn't waste that vote. It was too important.
Yeah.
And being in church world and knowing what's at stake in terms of the opportunity we have as a not-for-profit to have religious exemption and to not be forced to follow some of the laws that exist for quote-unquote equality, then it had to be a platform pick. So I kind of did it holding my nose voting for Trump the first time.
Yeah. But how do you feel about him as a person?
As a person? I don't know him as a person,
From what you can see.
Yeah. So from what I can see is I think Trump, he's certainly egotistical, right? And I think his ego, like most egotistical, narcissistic people, has led to a lot of success.
Yeah.
Rarely, narcissists are kind of on this divide, right? Like you either like a total failure and you live in like oblivion, or you're wildly successful and everybody knows who you are. Like you don't.
So which type of narcissist am I?
Time will tell. Time will tell. Yeah. I don't think you're a
We
true.
throw around
I don't think you're a true narcissist. You know,
really?
and I think we actually use the term a lot more.
We use it all the time.
Yeah. So there's actually so I think people have narcissistic tendencies, and then we label them a narcissist. That's not really true. A true narcissist actually lacks the capability to consider what other people are feeling. Like they actually. So in terms of a technical definition, like they do not exhibit the ability to go, oh, you're feeling this.
Yeah.
They don't have that ability to read that. So
Yeah.
as a result, their emotional intelligence is actually
Right.
a lot lower. So I think he has that. Two, I think that Trump understands his audience in terms of those who are rooting for him, that they like his bombastic nature.
Yeah.
But I only saw 30 minutes of the debate. But
Okay.
when he started bragging about scoring off the chart on the IQ test, I was like,
Come on, Trump.
I mean, come on.
Come on, bro.
Yeah, this is,
Yeah.
you know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard, you know.
Yep.
And going into when 2020 happened, it was like the best thing he did was he finally got out of the way and let Kaylee start handling the press conferences.
Yeah.
But man, you know, he's very rarely making a good point in an eloquent way. Like
Well, that's how I feel. So how do I say this?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Trump understands the philosophy behind the Constitution, or
not at all. No,
like,
that's not
you know what I
important.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
he's not an actual educated man.
Right,
And I'm-
and if you go back to like the 1980s, you'd see in his interviews he clearly states that, you know, he's just a son of a businessman. He learned real estate, and
Yeah.
he ran wildly with it. And with the deregulation of the 1980s,
Yeah.
he was very adept at exploiting that. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, he
And I
is a
think that's
businessman.
where, as a pastor, I'm always careful, because people think, hey, if they know that I'm going to vote for Trump,
Sure, yeah,
they think that means that I think he's some kind of amazing Christian man that exemplifies morality.
yeah,
and
yeah.
And clearly, like, no.
Right, he's fiscally conservative.
Yep.
He's never been socially conservative.
Yeah.
And I don't understand why people think that he is. Like, I mean, I heard this a lot the first time, that he's a baby Christian.
Yeah.
He'll come along, and eventually he'll believe that we shouldn't have gay marriage. We should only have civil unions, and he'll come to a point where, you know, he'll be really firm on the abortion thing,
Yeah.
and it's like, that's not Trump. That's not why Trump's running. That's not why Trump's interested in running. Like, he's fiscally conservative. He's border conservative. He's not socially conservative. There's no lineup there with traditional evangelicals and with Trump on social issues.
Yeah, I mean,
you
especially
know?
with his stance recently on abortion. I mean, during the debate.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
and he's very pragmatic about it.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
he will support the abortion pill.
Yeah. And I think this is where, like, the Republican Party as a whole is unified around less and less social issues, and unified more and more on holding the line of the country, trying to maintain some integrity of what the United States has historically been in terms of republic, being capitalistic, so forth.
Yeah.
So
you're thinking that should, or that is more important?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not sure I have an answer to that. For me, I grew up as a Democrat. I grew up in a Democrat house. Like,
Oh, that's right.
so like, even for me becoming a Christian at 18, like, it was kind of like a slow, gradual process over probably 3 to 4 years before I started to really come around
Yeah.
in some of these social issues and have, like, clear understanding. Definitely 2 years. It's but so for me, it's like, well, there's certain things that has to be true in order for America to thrive,
Mhm.
And I think capitalism is really important, and it's not because capitalism has the best ethic. I don't think there's a built-in ethic into capitalism.
Yeah.
But I think if you have ethics and morality and you live in a capitalistic society,
Yeah.
it presents the opportunity for you to do the most good.
Mm.
Now, on the other hand, if you're greedy and evil, it has lots of opportunity for you to do the most harm, and we see that.
Yep.
But I think there's, like, a growing lie among young people that somehow there are systems like socialism that have a built-in ethic and they don't. No system has a built-in ethic. Ethics are individual, right? And then when you have them on a large scale, that's when it begins to make an impact or a change, you know? And so what we've seen in America is that because of the opportunity for social mobility and the opportunity to make money, then we've also seen the country be the most philanthropic country, meaning that we give more money than everybody else. I mean, in terms of billions of dollars, where I think this is a few years, maybe 5 years, 6 years old, but we are north of $40 billion annually philanthropically.
Wow.
The closest was, I think, the UK at like 1 billion.
Oh, geez.
You know, so like
there's a huge disparagement.
Yeah, no other country in the world touches us, right? And then, but the impact that we've had globally is immense, you know?
Yeah.
And the reason why the gospel has moved as far as it has in the 20th century into different parts and why we're so much closer to getting the Bible into every language is because of philanthropic activity.
Yeah.
Because people can earn money and put their dollars to work.
Yep.
And that happens in a capitalistic society. So I feel like that kind of has to be maintained.
Yeah.
If we want to continue the momentum that we've had.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and the question, oh man. So you watched the whole debate.
Yep.
So when because they didn't even really answer this, but they started to ask a question. It was around the topic of like, what are you going to do for the middle class? Like, what are you going to do for the people who are struggling with drug addiction? What are you going to do for the people who are having a hard time paying for childcare?
Yeah.
What did you think about those questions?
I was interested in those questions, and you know why. I mean, because we do own and run a childcare.
Right, yeah.
And I know that...
This is time for a plug.
Yeah. Kingdom Kids Childcare. If you need a place to go, you should look it up.
There we go.
But yeah, I know what my wife goes through because we are a HHS certified childcare center, which means that we will take assistance from the government for people that are low income.
Right.
And I know what that process looks like, and I know how much they're giving per dollar amount that people bring in.
Right.
And I thought it was already pretty good. So I don't know if that's just in a state of Iowa thing.
I was going to ask if that's federal or state.
I'm not educated enough. My wife does this. I don't. I'm on the outside. But I think HHS is an Iowa thing, I think.
Yeah. So in terms of like the state of Iowa using tax dollars to help supplement childcare for people who have lower income.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's a good investment for Iowa. I mean, because you get people to go into the workforce and pay taxes. I mean, I'm sure they've done the math there.
Right.
That you'd rather have someone working than not working.
Yes. Yeah. And you would rather have somebody having their child well cared for in a place like this.
Right.
Than other options, which can be less than desirable.
Yeah.
And frankly dangerous.
Yeah. You know, to be completely honest with you, though, in the debate on those topics, let me just say what I don't like about debates.
Yeah.
I think the entire thing is a crap show in the sense that they're saying what makes them look best. And we're trying to filter out what's true and what's not true.
Yeah, right.
And this is why I think politics is super... I guess I'm smart enough to say how dumb I am when it comes to politics because it's so confusing because people are trying to paint a picture to win a people over.
The perception of reality instead of reality itself.
Yes. Yeah. And the people that start spewing, these facts, and this study said that this amount of people supported Biden on this topic, and then Trump comes back with, but this, and it's like, what's true?
Yeah.
How do we know? So, honestly, if I'm being completely real, I'm watching the debate to see what the responses are to the big questions.
Sure.
I was curious about abortion.
Yeah.
I was curious about the border.
Yep.
I was curious about some big things, but all of that middle ground debate on back and forth banter of just, I'm zoned out. Like, both of you are idiots.
See, I thought you'd be more interested on the golf game part. I thought that part would.
Oh, my God. Let me just unapologetically tell the world, if you don't know, that Biden has never, maybe in his 30s, he is not an 8 handicap. And he's clearly not a 6 handicap. I'm not sure people understand what that takes to get there. So I'm a 5 handicap, a 5.5. And I am younger, spend a lot of time. There's no possible way.
I loved that so much. I hated it, you know.
Oh, it was great. I put it on my Facebook. Highlight of the night. They're now talking trash about each other's golf games.
Yeah, that's about amazing. The time I wrapped it up.
Yeah.
So I wrapped up about that point. But
here's a question I have. Here's a question I have. Unless you want to finish something about the golf thing.
Yeah, just I like the fact that that Biden was like, I was a 6 handicap when I was vice president, and Trump's like, you were an 8, and then Biden kind of had this look like, how did he know?
That's not what happened? I thought he said I was a 6, and then Trump said that, and then he goes, well, actually, I was an 8. He corrected
Trump,
himself.
I think Trump called him an 8. I think Trump.
I thought Trump said, pfft, no, you're not. I've seen your golf swing.
Yeah,
I did hear him say that.
Yeah, he did say that. Yeah, and Kid Rock did an interview somewhat recently on Rogan this year, and he talked about going out golfing with Trump, and he was like, dude.
Oh, I've seen from multiple people that like, Trump's a player.
Yeah.
I mean, multiple ways.
If you own.
Oh, sorry. I mean, it's true though. So here's my question. I want to ask this.
Okay.
I want to talk about the lens or the presuppositions that you have to bring when you're viewing a debate. And let's say that because there's presuppositions that happen on both sides of the aisle.
Absolutely. Yeah. Explain real quick what a presupposition is.
A belief that you're bringing to the table, or a filter you're looking through.
Right. Yeah.
When
it's a pre-existing belief.
Yeah, pre-existing belief.
Yeah. This becomes like a cornerstone to our framework. Oftentimes we're not even aware of what our presuppositions are because we hold them so closely.
Yes.
And oftentimes when they're challenged, people don't have a way of coping with them, and so they actually revert to anger or violence. And so it's very hard to challenge people's presuppositions.
So I've got this guy.
Yep.
Now, brilliant.
Yeah.
I'm talking like IQ's probably 160, 170.
Yeah, chess player. Yeah.
I mean, he works for CERN. He's a physicist.
Okay.
PhD. Anyway, we're discussing the debate.
Sure.
His perception is, I would rather have a man of integrity that tells the truth than a liar like Trump.
Which one was the one who told the truth?
That's my point.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, I'm not trying to say, I'm smarter than this guy, because I honestly, on paper, like you take an IQ test, he probably buries me. But here's what I do know. Hey, bro, both of them are liars. Let's just start with that basic fact.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, the amount of things that Biden got caught immediately lying about. The border supported me. The border, I don't know if you saw this, the Border Patrol tweets out literally 10 minutes later, to be clear, we have never and will never support Joe Biden.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that came out. The authorized Twitter account of the Border Patrol came out and said, we have never nor never will we. And everyone knows the border doesn't support Biden. What are you talking about? It's been a disaster for years now.
Yeah. I mean, okay, so I think this is one of those things that is important in coming to light, is that going into the last election, I think at least a lot of people I'm friends with who are evangelicals had two things happen simultaneously. One thing is that they were lulled into this false notion that Biden is a moderate. And that voting for Biden meant just a placeholder president for 4 years, nothing was going to change. And I think if you look at Biden's political career, Biden's a chameleon. Biden does what's best for Biden. Biden's never been strong on any issue at all because he's a career politician, right? Go ahead. Yeah. Challenge me. Yeah.
Well, here's what I want to challenge.
Yeah.
I think you're giving too much of the country too much credit.
Okay.
I don't think the majority of the country thinks in terms of Joe Biden's a moderate. You know what I think here's what they think. Joe Biden seems like a really polished, nice person.
Oh, and I'm not talking about the whole country. I'm just talking about like people who would typically not vote Democrat, who did vote Democrat last election.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Those people. Yeah. So
this is like, so the middle ground people.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
And particularly, I mean, because I travel in evangelical Protestant circles, a lot of people like that.
And I think what people buy into, though, just to elaborate on my point a little bit.
And you mean in like a large swath?
In a large sense, what they buy into is they see his Twitter account, and it's always standing up for people groups.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's let the woman make the right choice, or stay out of the way of the woman. We support LGBTQ. It's a very seemingly positive.
Yeah.
Right? And it paints him as a loving figure.
Right.
He's not a guy that's going to bash other people. He's not a guy that... And here's what I want to get to, the presuppositional part.
Right.
is what is the foundation for your morality?
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that is what's behind everything.
Okay.
Do you not know what I mean?
No, I think I do know what you mean. I'm just curious what you mean by behind everything. So,
all right,
kind
so
of an
if I'm
absolute statement. So
yeah, it is not. I'm known for making absolute statements.
know,
Everyone that
that's-
knows
yeah.
me hates it. So
that's my
I also exaggerate to make points.
yeah. That's my favorite part about doing this podcast with you.
So what I've noticed a lot of, I'm gonna label people here, and I'm sorry for doing it, but I want to unapologetically say this, and maybe you guys can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Almost all of the progressives,
Okay.
or liberal people that I know,
Yeah.
that would vote for Joe Biden, their system of morality is that whatever I feel like is true or good or wrong is my system for morality. There's nothing objective behind it.
I would say a little bit differently than that.
Okay.
So, for my friends and family that would label themselves as a Democrat, be happy they vote for Joe Biden and think Trump's the biggest loser ever and worse than Hitler.
Yep.
They would, I think, as I've understood it, because I'm trying to get at what's going on here. If somebody they care about is in a people group or has experienced a problem, they feel the weight of them and their care for them, and so they vote in accordance to that, right? So, so if someone I love is part of the LGBTQ plus community, and I love that person, then I'm going to vote. They don't think that I'm voting for Biden. They think I'm voting for my friend or family member.
You know what that's called? The sin of empathy.
The sin of empathy.
Have you heard this going around in Christian circles at all?
No, not at all. Yeah.
So
I mean, I read one. I think it was a Gospel Coalition article on it, but yeah.
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 So the sin of empathy basically would say that, instead of being a Christian, which I understand some of these people aren't claimed Christians. Maybe they are.
No, I'm saying for the vast majority of them that I'm thinking of right now aren't, but I certainly have met a lot that are as well. But I'm thinking just of people who would be like, just.
You think they're voting because they're having empathy with the person that is in a specific people group.
Yep.
Whether it be LGBTQ,
right,
minority.
Sure.
And they think that Biden and the Democratic Party are the best for them.
Because they say they support them, right?
But see, I would still say that foundation is I have a subjective morality. And above that, you see what I mean?
Sure, yeah. I think the statement you made is how I feel, and I think people see it as I'm voting for my friend or my family. So
because that's how they feel.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
I understand what you mean.
Yeah. I think that at the root of it, the foundation of it, is you either hold to some type of objective morality.
I'm just saying what people would push back on what you said is they would see it as being virtuistic, where I think,
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think people do feel virtuistic voting for Biden.
100%, yeah.
But it's because they don't go deep enough to understand the philosophy that founded this country.
Okay.
Right? The moral system that, whether you like it or not, our country was built on was the philosophy of Locke with human rights, which we know he was influenced by the Protestant reformers. We know that whole biblical idea that God is made in the image of God, that man is made in the image of God. That is what gives him value.
Mm-hmm.
It's not his race. It's not his, although it took us a while to figure that one out.
Yes.
But do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
The biblical foundation for our country, people don't understand.
Sure. I think, well, we had this narrative. I was talking to my nephew's girlfriend, and she was saying how she was learning about the Salem witch trial in high school. And she was talking about, how crazy is that these, Christians wanted to burn these women at the stake without trial, right? And the part that's not taught is that it was actually Christians who got the whole thing stopped. That it was Christians who were protesting it, right? Yeah. So in our retelling of American history in the public school system, when we can straw man Christians' negative influences, we do that. But no one's taught in the public education system the positives of what Christians have contributed to society, let alone to world history in terms of inventions and so forth.
Well, it's the same thing with slavery.
Yeah, 100%. Yep, exactly. That's another great example.
America takes a lashing for slavery, which
Sure.
Absolutely. America should repent. America was wrong. But America was also one of the first nations to ban slavery.
Right. Yeah. Right.
And people don't know that.
Well, and people act, I mean, we're taught that slavery was an American problem,
Right.
not a global problem.
Yeah.
We're also not taught that there's more human slaves today than there was in the 1800s or the 1700s, right?
Yeah.
So, again, we have this perception of reality,
Yeah.
right? Not reality itself.
Yeah. But back to my thesis.
Okay, back to your thesis. Sorry. This is the whole notion of disformed, is that...
It is.
Yeah.
And listen, I could be wrong here, but this is how my mind works. That when I see people that are passionate, they just don't think deeply enough about what their moral foundation is.
Sure.
Nor do they think deeply enough about how believing in something as LGBTQ, which is what I would consider anti-family, has a profound effect on the country as a whole. And we're already starting to see this. Like, it's insane.
Sure.
What'd they say? 20% of Gen Z identified as LGBTQ.
Yes. Yeah, the numbers shot up dramatically, you know.
Now, I do think that's going to start falling. I think that even this year, I don't know if you noticed in Pride Month, it's been way tamed down compared to like the last 3 years.
You think so?
Oh.
Yeah?
Dude, Target. Do you not remember Target?
Well, Target had to back away. Yeah,
Target lost
a lot
its
of money.
shorts.
Yeah, Target
lost their shorts.
Yeah. Okay, so this may be tangential to what we're talking about, but I think you mentioned a moment ago that we were so far behind on the ethnicity part that we were so quick to discriminate, and we had laws baked in that created a lack of opportunity for minorities, right? And the level of racism was pervasive, and still definitely in pockets, is still very much present in our country and in the world, but definitely in our country. So I think that because companies were so slow, they're now in a season where they're trying to get ahead of everything, and so they're pushing agendas that aren't actually relevant, right? So like they're trying to make up for being behind the curve before with prejudice, racism, so forth. Now they're trying to make up for it. So was it Bud Light was the beer that had the whole Dylan Mulvaney thing?
Right.
So and the whole thing goes crazy once Kid Rock gathers all of his Bud Light on his property and shoots it all with his submachine gun, right? So the president of Bud Light contacted him after that video.
Really?
Yeah. And they said, listen, we hired an outside marketing firm, and they said, this is exactly what you need to do to reach the younger audience. You need to be pro-transgender. And it all blew up in our face. And he's like, would you come in and try to help us right the ship?
Really?
And so Kid Rock ultimately didn't end up doing something with him, but he did come in and meet with the board and like talk with them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we're living. Is I'm thinking there's just people who, again, it's because it's capitalism and they're trying to figure out how to make money, right? They're trusting these marketing experts, and they're getting ahead of themselves on their skis, that they don't actually understand their audience.
Yeah, so it's all driven by money, you think?
I think so, yeah.
So all these companies that you see that have Pride shirts that they're selling for this month, and
it's not because, I mean, there's certainly businesses that there are probably CEOs who personally, embody these values, but I think by and large, people who run these companies just want the bottom line. Like that's what matters to them.
Yeah.
People were really surprised when Jordan made a donation to BLM in 2020 during the civil unrest. And I was like, do you know how much money Jordan just saved themselves by making that $1 million donation to BLM? Yeah. Like, it's not about whether or not Jordan believes in the cause or not.
That's a good point.
It's about the optics of it, right?
Yeah.
That by not doing it, that could have cost
the amount
billions.
of black Americans that are buying Jordans. I mean, that's a huge...
All Americans.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, specifically, I mean, you know what I mean? It's got to...
Yeah, I mean... So in terms of, like, the optics of it, it's like, it's easier to make that donation.
Yep.
I was in Iowa City in 2020, and every single window had a BML, placard or whatever, yard sign, and an LGBTQ plus in June, right? And my wife was like, do you think like every single person who owns every single shop in Iowa City supports this? I go, I don't know, but it's definitely cheaper than replacing a window.
So true.
You know, and that's
especially a university town.
And that's where we were at in 2020, right? It was like, if you didn't have that, that's a fast way to get your window broken.
Yeah.
So I think to a certain degree, if you run a business, it's like, well, how do we survive? And trying to figure out this landscape, you know?
Yeah.
And so back to the morality piece, though.
Yeah.
You know, because I do think there's this mechanism of trying to figure out how to like survive.
That's I think that what I'm
time period
get passionate about, and I've had multiple conversations with people that aren't believers.
Yeah.
On this is, I don't think you understand how necessary and good it is, even if you don't believe in Christianity yourself.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
That our country holds to an objective morality, because here's where it goes.
Right.
We know from history, like, here's where it goes.
Yeah, because really everybody thought that the Enlightenment was going to bring a lot of solutions, and France immediately devolved into chaos. You know, so for example, like Jewish people, because they've been persecuted in you know, Western Christian Europe, they thought when France went with the Enlightenment that it was finally going to be a place that was going to be a safe haven for them, and the persecution got even worse.
Yep.
And the blood libels and the pogroms got even worse, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, very rarely does that work.
Yeah.
And when we go into a different system like Marxism or socialism, again, you have like this oligarchies that thrive, but you don't have the common people who survive, right?
Yep.
And capitalism, like, yeah, we had this 1% who are uber wealthy, but everybody else is lifted up with them.
Yeah.
Where in other societies, you have this 1%, and then everybody else is dragged down by it. So,
yeah. So yeah, that's what I get passionate about. Is I want people to at least be well thought out, and I think this is why my buddy that's really smart.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. He comes to this conversation, and he watches the debate, and he sees it through the lens of the guy that's the nice one on the stage, that fights for the people's rights.
Yeah, kind of nice. He was, you know, I mean,
nicer than Trump. We can say that he's nicer than Trump.
You think so? I think he's meaner.
Come on, dude. Trump's like known for "you're fired" or how I don't have a good Trump voice. I mean, he's known for being in your face, bold. Biden is, you know, he was in his younger years a little bit more bold, but
yeah, I mean, I think come on, man. You know, I think he has this like aggressive.
It's not mean. I'm not sure I even know what Joe just said, nor do I think he knows what he just said. Like that's more mean. And I mean, it was a great line.
Yeah.
Come on. Undisputed, Trump's meaner than Biden.
Definitely on Twitter, he's meaner than Biden. Yeah, but he probably writes his own tweets, and Biden doesn't. So
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. But still, I think that even being a brilliant person.
Yeah. So I guess so when I was talking about the two things that happened simultaneously, like one, people thinking Biden was a moderate. I think the other thing that people bought into, particularly evangelicals, was that they needed to vote for they couldn't vote for an immoral person.
Yes.
Right? So I can't vote for Trump because he's an immoral person.
Yes.
And I don't know when this idea really came about, but it seems to really caught a lot of traction with Trump, where I didn't really hear this conversation prior to Trump. And I think it's a little bit of a false paradigm of how we view voting. Like I think it's a little bit wrong-headed. And what I mean by that is that historically, and I'm talking about like world history, voting for your official is extremely rare. Like we're living in the scope of human history. We're living in a time period and in a country where this is unique. Like in terms of history, we're in like a 1% category where we actually have a voice into who our elected officials are. And so I think that comes with a responsibility to do whatever we can to provide the most stability and civility, morality for our society.
Yeah.
And I think the person to not vote at all is problematic to me. And I'm not quite sure the way I don't have a way of saying that I would die on this hill, but I just think that we're so accustomed to it that we don't quite appreciate what exactly it is.
Yeah.
And I think we know that in our system we have a two-party system. I don't like it. I don't know a lot of
but
people.
it's just
that do
reality.
But it's reality.
Yep.
So to then not to put a write-in is a no vote, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and we're kind of in this pickle, right? Where it's like we have a two-party system, and you can vote for one party, no party, or not vote at all, right?
Yeah.
And I think in terms of human history, to have the privilege of voting
is a big deal.
Is a big deal.
And we should take
advantage of it.
Yeah.
And that to think that, okay, well, Trump might be an immoral person, but if he's going to support the election of judges who are going to be more moral,
it needs to be more about policy and what they're going to do than it is about their personal character.
Platform.
Yeah. And I completely agree. But again, I even have a problem with I'm not going to vote for an immoral person.
Because
how are you defining that?
Well,
how are you because Trump in his younger years when he was a business guy out being crazy, slept with a porn star apparently. You know what I mean? Like, is that how you're are you not smart enough to understand that Biden probably has some skeletons in his closet?
Well, yeah, and obviously he does, right?
Right.
Yeah, any career politician is going to have skeletons in their closet.
Right.
But it's the idea of, well, he's immoral. Well, I think we're all immoral.
Thank you.
I think this is if we're talking about whether or not we're good or bad.
Yeah.
What's the standard? Well, if the standard is God, then we're all bad.
Right. What's your standard? That's a great way to put it.
So
when people are asking that question, what's your standard? I think that's it.
Well, this is what Jesus says to the rich young ruler, right? He calls him good teacher. Why do you call me good? Mm-hmm. No one's good but God. Yep. And it's this rhetorical question to see if the person actually understands who he's talking to, that he's actually talking to God, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, it's like, okay, well, hindsight's 20/20. We don't know what the last 4 years would have been like under Trump.
Yep.
But as a middle class person, watching the news and having friends who fought in Afghanistan, and then to see the pullout the way that it was done so poorly, I know for every single friend who fought there, that I had at least, I know not everyone is on the same page here, but that was really, really hard to watch. To be there for so long and to have it end so poorly.
Yeah.
We watched on national TV a woman throw her baby over a fence to soldiers, right? Like, the country was immediately taken over. Mm-hmm. Terrible, right?
Makes the whole thing feel like a complete waste.
Exactly, yeah, right. Now, we could go into some conspiracy theories. I'm not sure if you want to handle that here or start a separate podcast.
Separate podcast.
When you look at the border, it's going to take years for us to figure out maybe there are some pros, but there's also some cons to having an open border like we've had for 4 years, right? Like, it's going to take years to figure out what that's like.
Yeah.
The ramifications of that. For the judges that Biden's appointed and the things that how they'll interpret the law, like, that's having a big impact.
Yep. Yep.
And so I think, again, I'm not looking at him as like the savior. I'm not looking at him as like the picture of morality. I'm not telling anybody you should be like him. I'm not saying you should speak like him. There's nothing there. I'm just saying if you only have two options, which is all that we had.
Yep.
And I'm thinking, while Biden may appear more civil, the policies that came about, and we've seen the transgender thing pick up a lot of steam in 4 years. A lot of steam in 4 years. I think the civility of the country would have been better handled under Trump. Now, again, Trump's so divisive that maybe it would have been even worse. I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. But we're about to find out.
Why? You think he's going to win?
I think so, yeah. Yeah, I think so.
I don't know.
I think I'm curious to see what the DNC does, right? Because, like, there's, the whole talk was, all right, let's do this debate and see if Biden can carry it.
Yeah.
And if he can't, then we'll have our Democratic National Convention and put somebody else to run in place.
I've heard that. Yeah, I don't know if he's going to, It feels like they're going to pull him out.
They're going to try.
It was interesting seeing CNN even.
Oh, yeah.
Just being like, that was a disaster.
Yeah, everybody. It was like everything that, like, conservative
I've never seen that before.
No, they all flipped on him like that.
They did. They flipped on him immediately.
But it's all scripted, right? Like, again.
Do you think this is all a played out, they knew this was going to happen,
Oh, I think they want to see how
conspiracy theorists.
I think they want to see how it would play out, and I think, you're a strategist.
So they were hopeful.
You're a strategist.
Yeah.
Right? So you make a plan.
Yep.
And you have here's plan A, and if this doesn't go right, then here's plan B.
Yeah.
If that doesn't go right, here's plan C.
Yep.
Of course, there's a strategy.
Yeah.
Right? Of course,
But I'm saying you don't think there's a chance that they knew Biden was going to flop? Because, dude,
I think they
had to
they
know
knew enough
that
the poor
guy has
that they did the first ever presidential debate before the DNC, right? I mean, it's the first time ever.
Can I just say that as a Christian man that has some sort of spirit of God living in me, that once in a while good comes out?
You do have the spirit of God living in you.
Thank you.
The Holy Spirit indwells
I didn't want to
you.
come across as egotistical.
It's not egotistical. It's just the word of God.
When I see Biden up there have a moment where he's like, and he's struggling, that I have a moment of compassion. I'm like, dude, get this guy off the stage.
Well, it feels like elder abuse, right?
It does.
Yeah.
Like, this is not okay to do to any man. I don't care who it is. But the most important job in the world,
yes,
has to be the most stressful job in the world.
100%. Yeah.
And he is clearly unfit to be president. And maybe not, because maybe you don't really do much as a president anyway other than sign things. Maybe you have a whole team that...
Well, he certainly seems to have a whole team,
And you would think that a president, one of their main jobs is to be a spokesman for their country, and that's going to be tough.
And I think the figurehead part is really important on the world stage. And again, I'm not a political commentary person.
Same.
If we have episode 3, this will probably not be.
This is a very disformed view.
Yeah, this is us having a conversation for the internet to consume.
Yeah.
So, all I'm saying is that if the president isn't firm, then the world goes crazy.
Yeah, and
right?
Trump made that point. We're seen as weak now, and I think that that's generally true.
Well, everyone said Trump's going to take us to war. We had the calmest.
Oh my gosh! If he did one thing exceptionally well,
yeah,
he seemed respected by other leaders.
Right, and they want to paint as like, oh, he's buddying up with like North Koreans Kim Jong-un, but no, he could just go meet with them, and it wasn't a problem.
Listen, the world is run by salesmen. The world is run by salesmen.
You've done sales.
I have. I think sales drive our country. I think sales are everything.
Yeah.
And I think if Trump, you cannot say that the guy can't sell. That's what he's known for.
Right. And so for me, I can't say this definitively, but my hunch is that Russia and Ukraine, probably not what it is.
Oh, without a doubt.
I don't think
Hamas, Israel?
I don't think Iran has the ability to fund Hamas in order to have the October 7th massacre that happened. I think China's itching to demonstrate its dominance. Hong Kong, I don't think people even realize how much Hong Kong is suffering right now after being returned back to China. Believers in Hong Kong are having a really hard time because they're trying to make Hong Kong like Beijing. The gospel is being smashed down in persecution right now. Like, Hong Kong operates as a democratic kind of safe space, as this like oasis, not being part of mainland China, and that's all going away. Like, it's not good for believers in Hong Kong right now.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of challenges out there in the world.
Yeah. So let's get into this for a second.
Oh yeah.
What do you think? We're coming into the election season, and we're definitely not doing every podcast on politics, by the way.
This is the last one.
I don't know about that, but
okay. This is the last one until the next debate.
What's a healthy amount that a believer should be involved with politics?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah, as a pastor, what do you think? Because it's been a hard 8 years to pastor.
It has. I think that there's two. Here's an easy way to do it. Look at the two opposite errors. There's one error that says that Christianity has nothing to do with politics.
Sure, yeah.
Then there's one error that I basically end up worshiping politics, and I wake up every day and I think Trump's my savior, right? Or whoever's your savior.
Yeah, right. That just the political system is your savior.
Right.
Yeah.
There's two opposite errors. And I think in the gospel, I'm trying to live
the tension in the middle.
tension.
Yeah.
I think politics matter. I think the gospel's political.
Yeah.
I think that to fight for a moral society is to fight for people and to love.
Yeah.
So I think my vote matters. So I do want to know what's going on. I want to be somewhat educated. I think it's important, but I don't want to become obsessed or ever put my hope or faith. Nor do I want an election to like spiritually depress me because I put so much emphasis, which I saw that happen.
Yeah.
So I guess that's how I live that tension.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. And I think that for me, as I know that everyone needs to, from a biblical perspective, they need to be a conscience that's surrendered to the Word of God, and they need to be surrendered to their conscience, right? That there are, you brought up the abortion issue, right? You're going, I need to hear this, because for me, this is a dividing line.
Yeah.
And so that's your conscience, right? Yep. And your conscience is surrendered to the Word of God, and that's where you come to that. And so what I want is for more freedom for people to have conversations and not, when their presuppositions are challenged, not to lash out and not to run away, but to take a posture of learning.
Yeah.
And we're pretty good at speaking in broad generalities, even probably in this conversation we have. We're pretty good at accusations. We're pretty good at labeling. And I think all of that is going to create further division in the church. And I think it's because we're uncomfortable. And when we're uncomfortable, and we talked about this a little bit last time, but that's where fear and pride create conflict.
Yeah.
And where I really like to see the conversation approach of like, where are you coming from? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
That's like, I understand that you're going to vote for this person, you're going to vote for that person.
So you're kind of tackling the relational dynamic that happens in politics season.
Exactly.
In voting season.
Yep.
Because Aunt Lucy's going to vote for Biden, and I know it, and it's going to frustrate me. And so we're going to have, which we saw a lot of that happen in 2016.
Oh, yeah, right. And in 2020,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, part of me is kind of relieved that we can't have this showdown again. I'm like, okay, good. But then I'm also like, but it could also get worse. Like, it seems impossible that it could get worse.
Yeah.
But it could still get worse. But it could also get better.
Yeah.
And I think that we are in need. Like, I feel like the Democratic Party is headed towards this point of they got to make a decision. Are we a socialist party or not? Because
I can answer that question.
Well, while not all Democrats would agree with that, that is a...
They wouldn't agree with the label, but I would say the majority of the ones that I know could also not do a very good job at defining socialism.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so this was a great conversation I had. So a lot of I came from a Democratic family, or, Democrats. My family's Democrats. Our family's not Democratic. It's very patriarchal, but, matriarchal, actually. But a lot of Democrats in the family.
Mama wears the pants. Is that what you said?
Well, the dads die so young.
They don't have a choice.
It's like, yeah. So, my, and I think you'd be okay with me sharing this story. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. I'm going to share it anyway. So, this is a couple years ago. My cousin was like, I consider myself like partially a socialist, and him and I have a great relationship. We're like brothers. And I was like, nope. It's like, how can you say that so quickly? I go, well, you're not. He goes, how do you know that I'm not a socialist? I go, okay, you're working. The guy next to you is working. You guys are doing the same job. You do it far better than him. He doesn't do hardly anything at all. Do you think that you should get paid the same, or do you think you should get rewarded and paid more?
Yep.
He was like, well, I think if I was working harder and doing a better job, I should get paid more. And I was like, not a socialist. It's not it.
Yeah.
Not a socialist.
Yep. That's the thing, is most people fight for social values.
Right.
But when you get down to it, they would probably disagree with.
Right.
Right? Especially if it affects their life.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so now let's I don't even know what time it is, but we still got time. So some people would say that the early church was socialist or communist in nature.
I'd say Jesus was socialist. I mean, I've heard that before.
Exactly. So how would you engage with somebody with that perspective?
Well, I would ask them what stories they're talking about.
Sure.
Or how they're coming to that conclusion.
Yes.
But if you think that helping the poor, like you said earlier,
Yeah.
being a capitalistic nation and us being the most philanthropic
Yes.
and giving however many billions of dollars every year,
Yeah.
I'd say, hey, is the goal to help the poor? Then like we need to get defined terms here. Does socialism actually help the poor?
Right.
Because history would teach us that it's devastating.
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And countries like Israel are partially socialist, partially not, right? And so they seem to do okay, where they have a lot of capitalistic structure, but then when it comes to like medicine, it's socialized.
Yeah.
So to do an ER visit, so I had to do an ER visit in Israel. Dirt cheap. You actually run your card before you even go in. Like you pay, and then you go into the waiting room.
That's pretty cool, actually.
$100, right? Yep. I don't even think it was $100. I think it was 100 shekels.
Yep.
So that would be like, it's like a 3-to-1 rate. However, they gave me fluids. And in the States, if you get fluids, like you have a room and you lay there with a bag.
Yep.
In Israel, they put the bag in and they sent me back out into the waiting room.
Oh, wow.
So I sat in the waiting room getting my fluids, and I was supposed to get 2 bags, and the first bag runs out, and it's like, do I have to switch bags myself? Like, so, not great.
Yeah.
You know, not great. Way cheaper,
but not a little uncomfortable.
but not. I think not what we want.
Yeah.
You know. So
Yep.
okay. So I think when Jesus is talking about the kingdom, right? That the worker who starts in the morning and the worker who shows up late, they get paid the same wages, right? People would point to that and go, "That's socialist," right? But it's like, it's. One, you're misunderstanding what a parable is, right?
Yeah.
That it's not teaching a truth for this world, it's teaching a spiritual principle, right? So you're misapplying the parable. And then 2, when you get into the early church, particularly Acts 2, when it talks about the believers having everything in common, right? We fill that up with meaning, right? Because they're selling their possessions, and they're caring for the poor, and they're giving money to the church. But again, you're saying, well, that's not society working like that. It's not being forced upon them.
Well, and that's the big thing I was going to say.
Yes.
It's not a governmental system
Exactly.
where there's people that are doing the system. And I think that's what people don't understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. It's a voluntary method of living.
If socialism was, hey, everybody volunteer to give to the needy with no hierarchical structure.
Yes.
Everyone say I.
Yeah.
All the people, like, that's not what it is.
Correct.
Right. It's usually immoral people at the top. There's always going to be people chasing more power, more money, more comfort.
Yes.
They're going to take it from somewhere.
Yeah.
And this is what we know from history in every country that's tried it.
So are you very familiar with the idea of kibbutz?
Kibbutz?
Yeah.
Is that a drink? No, I'm not familiar with kibbutz. Is this one of your? This is a Jewish thing.
It's an Israel thing.
Okay.
Yeah. You really need to go to Israel with me. Like,
we've tried 3 times, and then diseases spread across the world.
Yeah. We're past that though. It's okay. We go again.
Now there's just a war. We'll go.
It's. I have a lot of friends there right now. It's fine. It's not good, but it's fine. Like, it's safe. Yeah.
That wasn't convincing for me.
Not convincing enough?
It's not great, but it's good. Consider me a spoiled American. I'm going to go when it's great.
Okay. That's fine. We'll go when it's great. All right. So, late 1800s, Jewish people were moving to what was known as Palestine, a region of the Ottoman Empire, not an independent country, okay, just to be clear. Mm-hmm. And they were purchasing land from the Ottomans, and they were establishing farms. And the way that they operated these farms is they operated it, and a lot of these are coming from like Odessa, from Russia, and so they're operating as socialist, communist structures, right? But they're doing it voluntarily, and so and the first kibbutz was just south of the Sea of Galilee. So they share everything, right? And they even have like their children even lived in a separate home where they like slept, and then they would come and have dinner with their parents and then they go back into the children's home, right? And so every member of the kibbutz had a responsibility, but you didn't own your houses. You didn't. It was like if you had a tractor, it was the community tractor, right? So even one of the founders of the kibbutz movement quickly realized how terrible it is to share everything, and went and started another movement, which is not talked about as much, is the Moshav movement, which was still a community of farmers, but there, if you built a house, it was your house.
Dude, it doesn't take long to know or learn.
It really didn't.
That people, I mean, you have lazy people.
Yep.
You have hardworking people. This is the reality of life.
Yes.
I hate to break it to some people watching this video, but much of our poor in our country deal with laziness or character issues.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a little bit harder to get fully behind that statement, only because you spoke in such an.
I said much of. I didn't say all.
Well, it felt like all.
I felt okay. Well, I'm just saying,
yeah.
I'm a person that gets my hands dirty with the poor.
Yeah.
I mean, we run houses of people that deal with issues, and I know, like, generationally, I do think they're set up. They're not set up for success.
Yeah.
I think they have something going against them. I think that some of them genuinely need help.
Yeah.
But I think that still, I mean, even people in good families, man, laziness is rampant throughout our country. It's not just the poor; it's everybody.
Right, the sluggard, right?
Right.
We get into the Proverbs.
So you add that to growing up in a family that doesn't have much, where your parents are drug addicts and everything else.
Right, the odds are stacked against you.
The odds are stacked against you.
Yep.
So maybe I should have been more clear with my words, but you hear my point.
Yeah, and in terms of like homelessness, this was something that was shocking for me to find out, and this is a 10-year-old statistic, so I don't know how accurate it is today, but I think it's probably still pretty true, is that 80% of people who are homeless by choice, not by situation.
Man, you know what I would love to know?
What would you love to know?
What percentage of those deal with addiction or substance abuse?
It's very high, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, technically my father-in-law is homeless.
Okay, substance abuse?
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's what I've learned working in this is, I mean, I'm somewhat familiar with the homeless situation around here.
Sure.
Who's at the shelters, what's going on. We deal with this.
Yeah.
And there's a large portion of them that seem to deal with substance abuse or mental illness, severe mental illness.
Yep.
Schizophrenia, that sort of thing.
Right. And those things like that, I put in like the 20% category.
Yeah.
I haven't had any friends, but my friends, like brothers and stuff, have suffered from schizophrenia and were homeless.
Yeah. Which is sad. And I think that we need a system for that because that's not okay.
Well, and it's interesting. Schizophrenia is primarily a male problem. You know, so it's definitely genetically seems to be more males. And it has a very sudden onset, usually between like the ages of like 18 to 20.
Wow.
So you can be like clipping along just fine and then go into these paranoia states. So
yeah. So anyway.
Okay, so about the laziness piece.
Well, and so
working hard.
Let me flesh that out a little bit more. So we just said 80% choose to be homeless.
Yeah.
And
there's two different issues, right? There's a homelessness issue and there's a poverty issue, right? Like.
And I guess that's what, and that's what I've learned in our country.
Yeah.
It's difficult to be homeless.
Yes.
It's 80% of the time a choice.
Yep.
Of that 80%, I would love to know the statistics. I don't know them, but what percentage is choosing to use substance?
Yeah, I would imagine it's very high.
Very high.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, as much compassion as I have and try to give people, dude, there are a lot of people that are like, I don't want your help.
Right. Yeah.
Give me your money. I need it for drugs.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Well, yeah, because that's the other thing I learned was that the most common resources are food, clothing, and shelter.
Yeah.
And so if someone says that they need money for food, clothing, or shelter, it's just not true because there's an abundance of resources
in our own town.
For food, clothing, and shelter. In every city in America.
Yep. And what's really frustrating is, sorry, we're getting off kind of a random topic, but it doesn't help people
to just give them money.
No, and to just give them food, clothing, and shelter, pat them on the back, and say good luck. Like it's a never-ending problem.
Yeah.
I'd rather get to a solution. Not that they don't need that to survive.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's a need. But I'm saying I would love to see more programs that come alongside and actually help people.
Yeah. So most of my work with homeless people stems to my time in Denver. And the Denver Rescue Mission, which is downtown Denver, had an interesting model. And I've seen it replicated in a few cities, but I think it probably could be everywhere.
Yeah.
So they had a 30-day program where you come in and you can live there, but you have to be clean in terms of not using, and you have to work. So you have to be making food or cleaning or doing something. Like you have a job, a responsibility. Yep. And if you can do that for 30 days, then they had a secondary facility that they would then move you into.
So it's like a gamified system.
Right.
You can move up.
Yep. And then if you could graduate out of that facility, which was like a 2-year process, same thing, more complicated. Now they're doing job placement, so you're doing other things. You gotta stay clean the whole time, and then they move you out to another spot. And now this spot is like really fully re-entering society, but with the safety net of being in that home. And if you could graduate from that program, then by that point you could have a college degree or at least a high school diploma. If you didn't have that, you could definitely accomplish both of those things. And they would give you a car.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So you had mobility, right?
Yeah, that's what we need.
Yeah,
those are the programs we need.
And so it was a graduated process.
Yeah.
And then if you failed, there was a period of time before you could come back in. Yep. And they were straight with you that you're not going to fail this program over and over again. Like you only had 3 strikes and then you were kind of out.
So let me bring that full circle.
Let's go all the way back. Yeah.
So we were talking about socialism, and I said it doesn't take long to learn that some people aren't going to work very hard. They don't want your help. The Bible tells us, man, I believe fundamentally as a believer that sin is the root problem in our world.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so even if a person's homeless, I mean, I think that they can absolutely need help sometimes, whatever. But oftentimes you're met with resistance that says, hey, and in a socialistic environment, like we can't live in a place that says, hey, he gets an equal amount to the guy that busts his butt every day, that gets help, that whatever. You see what I mean?
Yeah. What's even crazier is that most people, I think, would assume that the person who's down and out, living on the street, would have like an awareness of sin. But oftentimes, these are the people that have the hardest time acknowledging that they have a sin problem. A lot of them think that they've actually figured out society, and that by living on outside of society is that they're actually
winning.
They're winning.
Like, we're winning.
Yeah.
I live for free and you don't.
Yeah. Well, and a lot, almost every homeless person has a phone, and it's a smartphone.
Yeah. Oh, I see that.
And it's paid for by the government.
Yep.
And then every single one of them has access to the resources that they want.
Yep.
So
let's wrap this up with just kind of hitting on the points of how a Christian approaches the next 6 months.
Yeah.
What's the right posture to be in?
Yeah, so I think, 1, don't read headlines on your phone.
Good one.
Okay. 2, I think, go to, there's a site called All Sides Now.
Okay.
And they do feedback on the headlines to show how different organizations, different news agents are reporting on issues differently and how they're covering them differently.
All Sides Now.
Yeah,
I'll try to put that link in the show notes.
Nice.
Did you like that? I felt like a podcaster when
Leveled
I said that.
up, bro. Leveled up. There might be an episode 3 now. And then 3, same thing with the conflict. Seek to understand, not to assess or evaluate, right?
That's good.
And so don't assume that the people you're sitting with have the same beliefs that you do. So come at it from a posture of learning, and don't mimic what we saw on the debate, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a debate.
Yeah.
There are rules of debate.
Yep.
The rules that CNN came up with were ridiculous. The short period of time to respond to these complex issues, you have 2 minutes and then a minute to respond.
Yeah.
That's impossible. So don't behave like that.
Yep.
Don't talk to people like that.
Yep. Seek to understand.
Yeah. Don't talk around topics. Address the topics. Don't be belligerent and repeat yourself over and over again. So let the interaction that you have with somebody, whether they agree with you or disagree with you, don't let it reflect what that was. That was not, in terms of the history of debates and where debate comes from, in terms of like Greek Athens, that's not it. That's not, I mean, we call that a debate. It's not really a debate.
And I would add 4. Put your hope in Christ, not in any politician. I mean, we've stated that already, but I think that that's crucial. And I think that that will keep you from idolizing the whole political game. I see that a lot in our church. I see a lot of people that are so hung up on politics. The world's doomed if we don't get our president elected.
Yeah.
And I think that that's just false idol worship.
So let me give a very specific application then to that point. So I think this is helpful. So in 1 Timothy chapter 2, so context, Paul has sent Timothy, or had him remain behind in the Ephesus church to deal with false teaching. And the way he deals with false teaching is first with prayer, right? So that's where he begins with Timothy's instructions, prayer. So this is what he says. First of all, then, I urge that petitions, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgiving be made for everyone. But listen to this. Then he says this, for kings and all those who are in authority. Why? So pray for everyone like this, especially kings and all those in authority, so that we, referring to the believers, may lead a tranquil and quiet life in all godliness and dignity. This is good, and it pleases God our Savior, who wants everyone to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. And then he gives sort of a benediction type understanding of Christ. For there is one God, one mediator between God and humanity, Christ Jesus himself human, who gave himself a ransom for all, a testimony at the proper time. Right? So pray. Pray for those in authority, so that we as believers may lead a quiet life. And don't be wringing your hands in worry and fear. And think about the fact that when Paul is saying this, it's nearly 250 years before Christianity would no longer be an illegal religion in the Roman Empire, right? And so we got to take the long view.
I love the emphasis there on what prayer is going to do for the one praying.
Yes.
And not for the one who they're praying for. And did you say there is diggity or no diggity?
It's no diggity.
No diggity, no doubt?
No doubt.
No, that was really good. Anyway.
1 Timothy chapter 2 verses.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Dang, bro.
1 Timothy chapter 2. That was good. Well, thank you for listening today.
Yeah. Lord willing, it was edifying.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, tough topic.
But I enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, it was good.
So, and again, Josiah and I we're not preaching right now. No. This is not us in the pulpit. This is just us having a conversation. This is definitely
not my forte. I'm not a political commentator. I don't spend enough time on it.
Right. I have friends who are extremely knowledgeable on international situations, and they'd be able to. Yeah, my friend Peter. Dude,
maybe we can bring one in sometime.
Peter would be phenomenal. I mean, the guy is off the charts.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, Moody alum, Trinity alum, lawyer, finance, and he watches the international scene like a hawk.
One day, let's bring him in.
Yeah, it's he's awesome. Phenomenal. Yeah.
Anyway, if you guys wouldn't mind, it's helpful for us so people actually see this, and it's not a complete waste of our time. But if you could share, comment on our videos, it's extremely helpful. Yep. Oh, and also subscribe. I think, dude, we got like 9 subscribers last week.
Boom. What's that?
9.
Yeah.
I'm kind of ready to break into those double digits.
Really? Yeah. I think this is probably not the week. Yeah.
You think it's going to take a couple weeks?
Yeah, I think we need to get to week 3.
All right, let's do it.
Awesome.
All right. Peace. We need a better sign-off word.
We'll get there. These things take time.